If you fall and you hurt your arm, what do? You go to the hospital, they do an x-ray to check to see if it's broken. If your doctor thinks there may be something wrong with your lungs, you get a CT scan to make sure there's no spot or tumor in there. And a while back, my cholesterol was a little high, so my doctor sent me to get a calcium scan of my heart. Good news, I'm gonna live. But the whole idea here is, when you don't know what's wrong, you go in and you use a diagnostic tool, the right diagnostic tool, to find out if there's anything wrong. So the same thing goes for our writing. Whether we think there's nothing wrong with our writing or we know there's something wrong, but we can't figure out what it is, we need to use the right diagnostic tool to look at our writing and analyze it and get clear, precise feedback. In this video, I'm gonna walk you through the tools we use at StoryGrid to analyze writing to give you clear, precise feedback so you know what to change and what to fix in your writing. This is something we do better than anyone else on the planet, so you're gonna wanna pay attention to this video. My name is Tim Grahl, I'm the CEO of StoryGrid, and I've been working with writers for over 15 years. My partner, Sean Coyne, is the creator and founder of StoryGrid, and he's a writer and editor with over 30 years of experience. So let's start with some quotes. I wanna look at this Neil Gaiman quote first. You always have to remember that when people tell you that something doesn't work for them, they're right. It doesn't work for them. And that is incredibly important information. You also have to remember that when people tell you what they think is wrong and how you should fix it, that they're almost always wrong. Let's go to this much more succinct quote from Bill Hader. When people tell you what doesn't work, they're usually right. When they tell you how to fix it, they're usually wrong. For you as a writer, when you're trying to get feedback, what you're looking for is error signals. You're looking for what is wrong with your writing. Now, it's your job to figure out how to fix it, but when you go to an editor or a fellow writer that's helping you look at your writing, what you're desperately looking for is error signals, the things that are wrong with your writing. So what is an error signal? It's easy to just say like, oh, we're looking for mistakes in our writing or we're looking for anything wrong. But it's much more nuanced than that. It's much more on a spectrum. So I remember when I was a kid driving around in my dad's old green Cutlass with the cracked windshield and the bench seats. And he had one of those old radios where you would have to turn the dial and move that thing back and forth, looking to get right in the right sweet spot where the voice would come clearly through. So you're turning that dial, trying to get all the static to go away or as much of the static to go away as possible so you can clearly get the signal from the radio station. That static is the error signal. It's when something else is coming through that you don't want to hear and it's messing up the clear signal from the radio station. So in this case, what we're trying to do is identify any time static is getting to the reader instead of the clear signal of your story. So we need the people giving us feedback on our writing to be really good at identifying what those error signals are. But if you've done this in any kind of context, a lot of times even working with an editor, but in a writer's group or anything, and you've tried to get these error signals, you can find really quickly how maddening and crazy making it is to try to get these clear error signals from people. A lot of times when they read your writing, they'll say things like, oh, it was a little soft in the middle, or I didn't like that character, or the protagonist didn't really speak to me, or the scene was a little long, or the scene was a little short, or the beginning, I don't know, was a little soft, and on and on and on. So here's what's so maddening about this. You're getting error signals in your error signals. You're not getting clear ideas of what the errors are. It's like going to the doctor after you fell and you hurt your arm and you show it to the doctor and you tell him how it feels. And he's like, yeah, that's a little weird. And then that's all he says. Okay, can you help me out and figure out what this is? And so with our writing, we need the equivalent of an X-ray machine, a CT scan, a heart scan. We need these tools so we can look at the writing, get clear error signals back so that we can go fix what's wrong with our writing because we know exactly what's wrong in clear, precise terms. This is what StoryGrid does. We have the best and often the only tools to analyze your writing, and we have a lot of them to look at everything from a sentence all the way up to the full macro story. So I'm going to give you a few examples of the tools we use and how we've used them recently with students in our trainings and programs, so you can get a look at how these work in the real world. So before we jump in, I've got links to articles and videos down in the description of this video. So if there's a particular tool you want to dive into, there's a link down below. So check on that after this video. So at the scene level, I recently used our objects of desire check. And what that means is I read through the scene and I need to be able to clearly identify one object of desire encapsulated in the scene for each of the active characters in the scene. So I need to be able to read it and say that character is actively pursuing that object of desire for each of the characters. I couldn't find it, and so that was a clear and precise bit of feedback that I can give to the writer that says, hey, there's no clear object of desire. You've got to fix that in your next draft. At the sentence by sentence level, I gave feedback to a writer about their adverbs. I noticed that they used the two adverbs gently and respectfully in the same sentence to mean basically the same thing. And this is when you've overused your descriptors. You don't want to use two descriptors that mean the exact same thing to the reader, so you got to cut one of those adverbs. This valence check helps to make sure that your sentences are getting the right signal to your reader and not confusing them or just stuffing too many words into a sentence that all mean the same thing. I used the 5 commandments of storytelling check to point out to the writer that their scene started and ended in the exact same place. And what that means is nothing actually changed in the scene, which means that the scene doesn't work, because stories are about change and every scene should move the story forward. So using the 5 commandments of storytelling, I could show exactly what was wrong with the scene and give the reader feedback on what they could change in their next draft. For my own writing, I used the StoryGrid spreadsheet to look at my full manuscript, and what I saw was that almost all of my turning points were revelatory, and that makes the writing feel flat and untrue, and it just gets kind of boring. So I need to go back and make some specific edits to make sure those scenes turn on active things instead of just revelatory. And finally, I used the order and chaos tool to point out to a writer why their characters weren't adding anything to the story. They were too flat. They were too neutral. They had to move up or down the order and chaos spectrum in order to actually become interesting and add something of value to the story. I could go on and on and on. These tools are why my partner Sean had such a huge successful career in traditional publishing, and it's how we can show that our writers are significantly getting better when they work with us. We have so many of these tools, again, that go from the sentence all the way up to the full manuscript. And this is how we're able to give clear, precise feedback to writers so they know what to change to make their story better. Okay, so we got really deep and nerdy there. So let's step back and look at this. How do you fix your writing? Here's the process. You take your piece of writing, whether it's a scene, a sequence of scenes, a full manuscript, whatever it is, and you take it to a StoryGrid certified editor or another writer indoctrinated into the StoryGrid methodology, and you hand over your writing. They read it and they evaluate it, and they're looking for error signals. They're looking for places where something doesn't work. And then they apply one of the StoryGrid tools to the writing so that they can identify what exactly is wrong, to find the error signals and then be able to clearly and directly give you a list of what those error signals are so that you can decide how to fix them in your writing. Now, a lot of times you can brainstorm with this person about how to fix them, but again, you have to assume you're going to come up with the fixes, they come up with the error signals. If you haven't been able to tell yet, I love this stuff. This is amazing. And the reason why I love it so much is even though I'm the CEO of StoryGrid, I came to StoryGrid as a fan first. I bought the book, The StoryGrid, I read it, and I was like, this is what I've been looking for. This is just a clear way to analyze writing, get feedback, and know what's wrong so that you can fix it. And that's when I reached out to Sean and we started working together. So I've always been a fan of StoryGrid first, and this is my favorite thing about it, is we have tools where we can take the writing that's not working, analyze it, and get clear feedback on how I need to fix it next. So if you're a writer that doesn't want to know the truth about your writing, that doesn't want the mistakes pointed out, and you just want people to look at your writing and tell you you're amazing, StoryGrid is not for you. But if you're like me and you want to get better at writing and you crave the clear, direct feedback on where you messed up so that you can actually go and fix it, you're gonna love StoryGrid. So make sure you go in the description, dive into the links I put there. You're gonna love it and you're gonna learn a ton, and make sure you find an editor or a writer friend that can help you find the clear error signals in your writing so that you can actually fix them. So as I pointed out here, there's a lot to StoryGrid and all the tools that we have available. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that bell so that you get notified of all the new videos as we come out with them. Also, make sure you go to storygrid.com, sign up for the newsletter. That's where you can stay up to date on everything that we're doing at StoryGrid. But as always, thanks for being a writer. Thanks for being a part of our community here at StoryGrid, and I'll see you next time.